I would like you to just give us a short snapshot, an image of what you think describes the most important aspects of this Arab Spring. What do you say, Mohammed?
Okay, that's a very difficult question, and you know, you asked me that yesterday, and I've been thinking about it, and I've been thinking, okay, so is it this, you know, this 19-year-old woman, you know, in her niqab who was guarding the squares, like, no, they will not come. She's like very little woman, like with her veil, like, they will not come through me, or is it, you know, this man who lost his son and decided he's not leaving the square at all, and I realized that. So these are things like the people I met, I interviewed, etc. But I realized that the best part of it, and what really gives me hope, is the little things that we didn't write about. And I'm thinking that something that happened to pretty much everybody. Okay, we're in the middle of the square. You're fighting with the police, and you got tear gas flying, you got stones flying from the other direction. You have Molotov cocktails coming up. You know, you got things exploding, and then you'll have. Sorry, I'll borrow that. And then you will literally have somebody coming up from behind. It's like, hey, want an apple? And that's that. That's exactly, it's like, it's like that incredible kindness and niceness and solidarity between people. Thank you. Between people, you know, people were sharing. They had little water. They shared it. They had little food. They shared it. They helped each other. They protected each other. And it's like it's those little things that created this micro community. It's not really micro because we're talking hundreds of thousands of people who were involved in that. But it was this really, really incredible aspect of what the society can be. And that's what means the most to me in that revolution.
Like the writer Al Aswani likes to say, the revolution makes you into a better person.
It does. Well, there's no denying that social media was useful. I mean, it was useful in partly mobilizing people because it allows for people to connect. People realize that there are other people out there who are upset about the same issue. You know, you're upset about police brutality, and you join some online group that says, you know, no to police brutality, and there's 1.1 million people in there. You realize you're not alone. So there's a mobilization aspect to it. There's an information aspect to it. Like you basically spread, you know, this is what's going to happen here and there. So that's the organizational aspect. And there's the information aspect. You just basically tell people outside of your tight circles, outside of the street, essentially, so people in the rest of the country, but also people outside of the country, what's happening, trying to give them accurate information. So, you know, so there's the role of social media was really useful. It was there, but would it have happened? Absolutely, it might have taken a little longer. But you know, it's like, you know, there were revolutions 50 years ago, and we didn't call them the telephone revolution, right? You know, it's like we didn't call World War II the telegram war, even though they used that a lot. So it's you know, we need to differentiate between the tool and the message. The message was there. You know, demonstrations were happening because people were angry because a guy was killed, not because a guy has tweeted, right? Their labor strikes are happening also because of real issues, and you know, and even the people who are using social media are real people too. I mean, they're angry as well. Like we're not bots, I swear. So you know, so would it have happened? Absolutely. Now the protest that's been planned on July 8th really follows a protest that was on 28th and the night of the 28th and 29th of June, which was last week. And the background for this is that the families of the people who were killed during the revolution in January, February, are demanding that, you know, that justice be served, and that the people who killed their children and their husbands and their wives and their parents, you know, be put on trial, which is a very legitimate demand. But the police is unwilling to let that happen. So on 28, 29 June, you had some pretty serious clashes. Their big protest tomorrow is going to be largely on that background. So that's I guess that's like the circumstantial issue. That's what the very short-term issue. But it's also there are a lot of things happening that are problematic. One of them is the relationship with the army. Now, essentially, the army has taken over governing the country, or at least in the presidency level. There's transitional government that's pretty weak. So the army is governing to a large extent, and they're not very proactive. I mean, they're not very pro-change. I don't know any army who is. But they're not very pro-change. So they're very much status quo. It's like, no, we don't want things to change. We like things as they were. We're like, well, we didn't lose 1,500 people for things to be as they were. So a lot of it is going to be trying to pressure the army to let people implement the changes they want. You know, new constitution, more political freedoms, not to have civilians being tried in front of military trials, because that's a big problem. So I had like 10,000 people since February, civilians, they were actually not from the street and put on military trial with no representation, with no right to appeal. with no lawyers, etc. So there's a lot happening, and so we're so tomorrow's going to be a really big day. So we're a little nervous, but also it's necessary. It's like sometimes you have to. You don't always would like it, but you have to go back to the street to ask for what you want, and that's tomorrow. So yeah, so stay tuned.
Do you regret not being there?
A little bit,
Yeah.
a little bit. I would have loved to be there, but I'm saying myself that being here also serves an important purpose, hopefully, because it's important to share what's happening with people. So thank you very much for coming, by the way. And that's one thing is telling people what's happening, but the other thing is, if I can have you guys leave this room, thinking a little more, it's like, okay, so what's really happening? Are we getting a clear image of what's happening? Or okay, maybe I need to look at different media sources of information sources of what's happening. Or even better, if I can get you to, I don't know, it's like, write to your representative to put pressure on something, or encourage your government or the European Union to send observers for the elections, or to encourage weapons companies not to send weapons to dictatorship. Like if I manage to get you guys out there for with thinking about the issues for a little longer than just this hour, then then my being here is probably more important than me being there. So, well, the economy. I mean, we're not just talking about this year. I mean, that's part of the reason. Part of the economic reasons have been part of the build-up, the anger build-up. A lot of people were really upset because workers are in unfair conditions and with salaries that are laughable. It's mediocre. So higher minimum wages was one of the main demands. Labor strikes was also very important. That's not to say that it was a workers project, because that's I don't work in a factory, for instance. Like me and a lot of my friends who were there were fairly well off. I mean, let's put it this way. So it's not just that. But yeah, so in late 90s, early 2000s, the economy has been wobbling a little bit, and it's more of an issue of distribution than an issue of growth, because there's a growth rate of 6-7% per year, which is well fairly good, but there's a big issue of distribution of wealth. So that's one thing. This year, of course, because of what's happening, well, tourism, which is the biggest engine of the economy, to a large extent being tourism, and there's not a lot of visitors going to Egypt this year on backgrounds of what happened, which is understandable. I mean, if you asked me that in March, April, I said probably it's not a good idea to go to Egypt, but actually right now, I can tell it's very safe. So come to Cairo.
So go out and get your tickets.
Yes, it's actually pretty cheap this time of the year.
Revolution tourism.
Well, you know what? Not just revolution tourism, but so tourism probably take a year or a little more to be back on track. So so it's going to be a little painful. The problem is that people have very high expectations, as well. So that will take some managing, I guess, but it will get on the right track, I think. Optimist. No, but really, there's no way back. There's no way back. It's essentially we're going down a highway and there's no turning, but some kinds you kind of can't find the brakes, so you do some crazy turns. So I really feel that's what's happening. There's no turning back, really. I'm really optimistic. It's all about how well we manage the rough turns, and there will be rough turns. There's an awful lot of work that needs to be done. Got the economy needs to need to work on the economy. The security system needs to be reformed. It's a whole other issue. There's a lot of political building. People are creating parties. We need to reach to people, talk about elections, etc. There's a lot of work that needs to be done, and a big part of the challenge is to keep people motivated, keep people involved. There's 8 million people took the streets on the 11th and the 12th of February. 8 million people. It's a lot of people. So part of our work now is get people involved and get them to brainstorm and come up with the best ideas. We have this very small window of opportunity where you can do things right, and it's up to us not to miss it. But I'm not an optimist
turning
eventually.
back.
Yeah. Positive.